So, and I tell them, like, you want me to foreclose on this. You want me to default. You want me to go to China. As soon as we sign these documents and I give the down payment, your hope and prayer should be that I default on this. So when like the worst case scenario is they make more money, it doesn't seem so bad. Welcome to How to Real Estate Podcast, a podcast to help you start, elevate, and catapult your real estate investing career. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new podcast that we post every single Monday. Jared tested.
Jana approved.
Hi guys, welcome to How to Real Estate. This is Jared.
This is Jana.
And we are the podcast where we help you start, elevate, and catapult your real estate investing career. Today, normally we have guests. As you can see, there's only two of us here, where there's not going to be any panning of video. It's a surprise, an extra person. But we're just going to be talking, just me and Jana, to you guys. This is a subject that I'm very familiar with, and Jana has experience with this as well. And so what we want to talk about is seller financing. So many people, seller financing for investors is the holy grail. You can do more things with seller financing because you're typically not using your own credit. You don't have to, you can close quickly. There's so many benefits to doing seller financing.
Money.
What was that?
Or hard money.
Or hard money, right? Well, even seller, you don't need hard money. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Perfect. So you don't need any lending unless you have, depending on what you're doing, right? For the most part, it eliminates a big chunk of the financing that someone needs. So a lot of the people that are just starting out and experienced people really, really try to understand and get as many seller financing deals as possible. What the thing is, a lot of people don't understand what is seller financing and how to convince someone that seller finance is a good deal for them as a seller. So what we're going to do today, we're going to discuss some of the definitions of different types. We're going to discuss some definitions of different types of like seller financing things. We're going to be talking about situations where people are going to be more likely to sell their property using seller financing. And also, and all that stuff a lot of people know, but what a lot of people just don't quite understand or wrap their head around is what to say to the seller to convince them that it's a great idea for them to seller financing. Because overall, in most situations, a seller financing deal, the seller will walk away with more money by the time the whole thing ends. That's just how it is, right? To explain that to them, so in a fashion where they don't tighten up, because it sounds scary. Doesn't it sound scary, seller financing sometimes?
Well, I think they think it's illegal. That's the first thing people think. That sounds illegal. How are you getting away with that?
Exactly. Like, you're not a bank. What are you doing? You can't do a bank thing. Like, well, sure I can. I mean, just because I'm not a grocery store doesn't mean I can't sell something out in my garage. I still sell things even though I'm not a store. It's the exact same thing. Definitions. Seller finance. Jana, what is the seller financing? This is a generic. This also can be considered with owner carrying the note.
We'll just do a standard seller finance is whenever the owner of the property, so whoever owns the property, whether they have a mortgage or not, is willing to finance the buyer the house.
Right. Exactly. No, it's good. So someone owns a property. This is typically someone that has a property that's free and clear to be a true seller financing deal, right? So they own the property and they're basically allowing you to make payments. Sometimes they'll do, majority of the times they're going to want a down payment, just like a bank would, right? And then every month the investor or buyer is going to make payments to the seller. Now, a good idea is to follow what the banks do. And this is for both sides, is to actually have an escrow company. Because when someone pays a mortgage, what's included in that mortgage payment, Jana?
Well, you have your principal, you have your interest, you have taxes, and sometimes you have primary mortgage insurance.
Yes. And also just insurance, property insurance too. So, but they have property insurance. And so this is great to know, even if you're going to sell a property with seller financing, right? So you want to be able to protect both sides. And so an escrow company, even though it may have a monthly cost to it, it's worth every penny, trust me. Because then if I'm buying a property with seller financing and I'm paying the escrow company and the escrow company is paying the seller X, Y, Z, I have proof that I'm making these payments and I'm making them on time. Because if you're just paying Billy Bob that you're buying the house from. And if you're not keeping good records, or, and it's just you sending checks to him, one, he could just lie and say he never got them, he never received them, or if he's doing cash, and then you have to go through the process of like going to your banks and pulling information out. So like, this is what so if you have a third party, it really eliminates a lot of those things. So that's a traditional seller financing deal, right? So if someone says seller financing, that's typically what they means, but there's also kind of umbrella of seller financing like purchases. So subject to is a very common form of seller financing. So subject to, what that means is, so let's just say Jana over here, she's going to sell she wants to sell her property, but she has a mortgage on the property. She has about $20,000 of equity. Okay. So let's say the property is worth $100,000 to make the numbers pretty easy. She has a mortgage for $80,000. So that leaves $20,000 in equity, right? So what I can do is I can go to Jana, like, Jana, I want to, well, I'm not going to go over the words, but so I buy the property for Jana. I will later on, but not the subject in this section. So I'm going to buy the property from Jana. The title is going to go into my company's name. So if I say my or me, I'm going to buy it. It's always my company. So if you're ever buying properties, listeners,
don't use your name.
Don't use your name. Never put, you need to get an LLC if you're buying properties, because it can protect you. All right. That's kind of a side tangent, but so when I say like, I'm going to buy a property, just know it's my company is buying the property, but semantics. So my company buys Jana's property, but we're going to leave the mortgage in place. So as like a down payment, I'm going to pay her equity. So I'm going to make a down payment of $20,000. So now she receives the exact same amount of money as if I would have paid off the whole thing, because she had $20,000 equity. So I'm going to give her $20,000. And this is all through a title company, right? You don't just do it, scratch a piece of paper and shake hands. That's it. No, this all goes to title company, and most title companies have seen stuff like this. If they haven't, then change title companies. Okay. There's plenty that have seen them and do them well.
I think we have an episode. Do we have? No, we don't have one yet.
Yeah.
The title?
No, I don't think we do. Not yet. Not yet. We're going to put that on the docket, right? We're going to do title people coming.
But yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up when you were talking about putting the title in your name.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask, what about the seller? Do they remain on title? Because they get, people usually say that if there's a mortgage on a property, the person on the mortgage needs to be on title.
Right. That is a good question. And if anyone tells you that, they are dead wrong. Okay. All right, guys. So here we are, all YouTube world and podcast people, you can't really hear. If you can't hear, I'm explaining it very well, but people that are watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see this and hopefully it's a little bit clear. So if it's not coming through very clear, then maybe jump on the YouTube and take a look at it. Okay, guys? So we have a property right here, and Jana is the owner, right? So this is Jana right here. So I draw a little picture of Jana. All right, so the mortgage is in her name, and the title is in Jana's name, right? So the mortgage of $80,000. Bam. Now I come in, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to give you $20,000 through title company, right? I'm going to give you $20,000. So she gets her $20,000 because I'm buying the property for $100K. And then she walks away, but we're going to leave. So the title goes into my business's name, but the mortgage is still in Jana's name. So I'm going to make payments on Jana's behalf. If anybody, maybe it's better not to see this because it's so scribbly, who knows? But I'm going to make payments on Jana's behalf to the mortgage company that she has.
Well, to escrow, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm paying the escrow company, and then they're going to, make sure that our mortgage company is taken care of. And so that's kind of the benefit. So now I have a mortgage on a property. So this would be a great rental, right? So you can do a rental. You could do or even just do as a flip, and you're only going to hold on to it for a year. Now that could be a good selling point to Jana, and that's something we'll go into maybe more detail later on when what to say. But as like, you're only going to hold on to a year because you're planning to do a flip, which is probably going to be closer to 6 months, but give yourself more time always. Give yourself a year, then the mortgage is out of her name. Now, this entire time, the mortgage is going to be in her name. So again, we'll talk about what to say later on, right? I just want to go into just the definitions of, so that's what it's subject to. So subject to existing financing. That's what subject to means. And then we can talk about wraparounds, but that's a whole nother podcast too.
And so in this scenario,
yeah.
Scenario.
I think both work.
So at the end of the year, I'm going to get my 1098. Is that a 1098? My documents, my tax documents, right? Just like I would since I'm holding the mortgage. Let's say, for instance, I have it for a few years. It's not just a year. So do I get to claim the insurance, or not the insurance, but the interest paid, or how does that work?
So that depends on what you agree upon. So if nothing is said, technically you get to do it, right? But if me as an investor, I'm making those payments, I want to claim those taxes. Now that could be like a little negotiation process. Is like, okay, hey, listen, I'm going to let you even get, because you're going to get $20,000 no matter what. You're getting the money that you rightfully deserve for this property. You're going to get $20,000 in pocket from day one. And you know what I'll let you do? I'm actually making pay interest, and they'll let you have the tax credits because of that. So that could be a good selling point to do subject to, because people are very like, well, they don't, because they're worried about us investors not making payments. That's their number one worry. And number two worry is like, well, what if they want to buy another property? They have a mortgage in their name still. So they can't buy this property over here because they have this mortgage over here. So typically after 3 or 4 months of evidence, that's why you want to have an escrow company of the investor paying the mortgage, then it all depends on your broker, your lending brokers. This is like a very generic. It depends on the broker. Some will say no, no way. Some will say, after 3 months of having me, the investor, showing proof that I've been making on-time payments for this, and it's now like it's being taken care of by someone else. The property's not even in their name anymore. There's no problem over there. They'll
depending on the mortgage company,
100%.
like you were saying, it could be even less than that.
Yes. I think you know someone that was like, as long as they can show the documentation of everything from day one, they're good to go, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, so everyone message Jana all day long. There is an issue with this particular due on sale clause. Due on sale clause. Do you know what a due on sale clause is, Jana?
So is the due on sale clause specific to the subject to?
Yes. It's specific to subject to, and only as far as it's pretty much only for the subject to that you're going to find this being a potential issue.
So the due on sale means that the mortgage needs to be paid off when you sell the property, right?
Right.
Or
so
whatever go ahead.
So almost every mortgage is going to say there have some sort of due on sale clause. Basically, if this property is sold, then they can call the mortgage due, right? So even if we still have our agreements and everything like that, and there's plenty of contracts. If you're never sure what kind of contracts to fill out, contact a lawyer. Let me rephrase that. Contact your local lawyer, not just but contact your local lawyer to draw up paperwork. Here's how it works. You go to the lawyer. Hey, Mr. Lawyer, I want to do this, and explain what I'm saying. And then, like, what do I need paper-wise in my state, in my area, make it legal. If you go to a real estate attorney, they'll understand to say subject to, like, oh yeah, you need this, this, and this. That's what you got. Have them fill out this paperwork, and they give them whatever they fee they need, right? At least you know it's worth it. It's worth the investment. Because I'd rather spend $500 on a lawyer than spend $20,000 on an oopsie. I should have spent $500 on a lawyer. Anyway, so the mortgage has a due on sale clause. Pretty much every mortgage has this due on sale. So the banks have the right to foreclose on the property or call the note due, not necessarily foreclose, but call the note due if there was a sale. Now, here's the thing. If you are making payments to the bank, to be honest, the banks, they just want their money. They don't care who's receiving. If they're getting a check every single month, whether it says Challenge Salver on it or it says Jana Oman on it, they don't care, right? The only time that's really a big issue is if you actually if you volunteer information. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm actually trying to buy this property and I'm doing this. And so like, well, is all my investor colleagues, my personal experience, as long as you're sending in the payments on time, the banks don't care. I've actually know someone that the bank tried to they called it due, and so the investor actually just melded into the next month's payment. They took it, they accepted it, so they couldn't do anything. So they were like, okay, I guess we'll just keep taking money, because that's what banks want. They want mortgages there. They want the interest. That's what they want. Because if they call it due, they have to find someone else to get a mortgage and all that fun stuff, yada, yada, yada. People are like, oh, don't do subject to because of that. If you do it right, you're not going to have to worry about do you want sell clause. Okay. I probably went into way too much detail than I probably should have. But anyways.
So the subject to, how is that different than the owner carryback? So the
owner carryback, right? You can have a down payment, like for example, using the example we just did, where you as the seller, I paid you $20,000, and then we held the note for the next the next, the existing $80,000 that was owed. You can do something very, very similar. So the owner carryback is the traditional seller financing, where I give you down payment, but instead of me making payments to the bank, I'm making payments to you through the escrow company, of course. So, because if you look, and one of the cool selling points, and we'll go in more details about this later on, but is for an $80,000 mortgage, if you actually got 30 years amortization, you're paying like $160,000. You're paying almost double, or sometimes even 3 times the interest, depending on how much interest you're charging. So that's a way to even, again, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to jump guns we're almost there. But does that make sense, the difference? So one, we're leaving the mortgage from the bank, and the other one, the owner becomes the bank in that scenario. They're holding a lien on the property. So a lien on the property, no one can sell the property until that lien is taken care of, just like a mortgage. I can't sell it until that lien's taken care of, or if it's stayed in like a subject to type of scenario.
So in that instance, the title goes into your name exclusively, and you do, I guess, a deed in lieu of foreclosure type thing.
You can. That's another negotiating tactic, which we're going to talk about a little more, if how to convince them that, because people are getting the worry that you're going to go off to China and never return, and then they're screwed. You're going to show them that that's the best case scenario for them. It's pretty, I have conversations with these people all the time, and it's like, you know what? You want me to foreclose. You want me to default on this property because you're going to make more money. What? So. I mean, so people are asking for $200,000 for property. How about if I give you $300,000? But again, sorry. What is your question?
No, I was going to say the escrow. Since you're paying the seller directly, is there need for an escrow company, or what would you recommend? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you need an escrow company and an owner carryback, since you're going to be paying? There's no.
You definitely need to. You would definitely need, if even more so, you would need escrow company. Because at least with the subject to, the mortgage company will have proof who's paying and how much they're paying, if it's behind or not. Right.
Right.
So if it's just an owner carryback, it's even more crucial to get an escrow company to have the proof that payments are being made, the insurance and title. If I'm selling a property with seller financing, because I want the interest, I'm not going to, it's a great way just to build interest. And sure, I'm going to have escrow company pay the insurance on the property in case it burns to the ground. I'm going to have and so I'm going to cover all, just like a mortgage would. That's how I would. And I even explained as people I'm talking to, like, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to protect you. I'm going to protect you by putting an insurance on this. And I'm not even pay the insurance. I'm going to do just like a bank does. I'm going to pay the escrow company. The escrow company is going to know. So if I don't make payments to insurance, you know about it. And then we have this clause where you can take the house away from me.
Yeah, I know people that would think, well, you're just going to be paying the seller directly. You don't have to worry about paying the mortgage. So why not just pay the seller directly? But there's different reasons.
Right.
You want to protect both parties, and you want to have proof that whatever was said is being done.
Yeah, exactly. You want it. The more paper trails you can have, the better, and because sure, you maybe, if I'm buying Jana's house, we could be best friends today, but then in 5 years down the line, I mean,
I
maybe,
want my money.
yeah, maybe, I mean, things, life's even within a year, things can change dramatically. I need to get money right ASAP. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to manipulate or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't, but I'm saying, but people get in that situation where they're like, I got to do something. So you never know. You always want to protect yourself, even with partnership. Protect yourself. Paper trail, paper trail, paper trail, paper trail. Always. There are other forms of like seller financing. Again, each one of these we can do its own podcast and talking about specifically, but I kind of want to go into like how to actually get someone to do seller financing, right? So one is contract for deed, and it's very similar for having a lease option as well. Those are two very similar type of seller financing like options when you're being creative and trying to get seller financing. All right. Now for contract for deed, for example, so we have, and I'm explaining everything as much as I can verbally. So you guys got this, right? So we have Jana as the seller. So we're going to do a contract. Now this is a contract. This is basically a purchase contract. It's a contract to deed. So the title of the property. So whatever property I'm buying, whatever house I'm buying, this is a contract. So in this contract says that me, the buyer, the investor, buyer, whatever, I'm giving myself lots of hair in my drawing because I don't have it in real life.
I know. I don't have any.
That's you get. There you go. See, I'm the one with hair. So the buyer, I drew a bunch of hair. I'm bald, guys, if you didn't know that. Anyways, so the buyer is going to make payments to the seller. And it's just going to be like every month I'm going to make payments, almost just like a mortgage, right? But the title remains in the seller's name. So the title stays with the seller and never gets transferred over to the buyer.
So you see this in contracts that like rent to own type situations.
Right. So rent to own, you can use rent to own, and you have to be everything we say, guys, here, make sure you check with your local professionals to be super clear. Every state has its own laws. There's Dodd-Frank laws you have to follow. So if you're going to apply, and that's anything we talk about on this show, channel, podcast, you got to make sure you check with your local professionals before you do anything like this. The rent to own is typically kind of like a lease option. A lease option is you have a lease, right? So you have this lease, and then it's like a renter's agreement. So I'm still paying rent to the seller. So me as the buyer, I'm still paying rent to the seller. But in the option in the lease, there's a clause in there that says lease option. I have option to buy, right? So I have an option to buy this property at X date for a certain price. A lot of times what a lease option will be, I will give the seller or the buyer, I will give the seller $2,000 maybe, or like a down payment, just they have the option to do this. Now there's pros and cons of doing it like this. One, the renter, the seller is going to have a renter that's going to treat the property like it's their own house because they're buying it, right? So the roof leaks, you're not necessarily going to have to fix it. They're going to fix it because it's their house. They're making payments on it because they're at the end of the lease, they're going to pay for it. Now legally, I think depending on where you're at and check your local laws, I think the seller still has to take care of a lot of that stuff in this particular scenario with the lease option. Contract to deed is a little bit on the grayer end. Contract for deed, you can actually get it depends on the area. Check with your professional. I'm not going to get into it, but
going back to the contract for deed,
yeah.
What's the difference between the two?
So this is a contract to purchase the deed. The lease option is a rental agreement that has an option to purchase the house that you're paying monthly payments. So the contract for deed, you're actually making payments that's going to count towards the end purchase price. So I'm buying the property for $100,000 on the contract for deed. I'm making payments, and so much of my payments is going to principal. While the contract or the lease option is, I'm just going to buy this property for $80,000 on X date. And the payments I'm making is just a lease payment. It's just a rental payment. Those are so these are very similar. And again, we can go into grit in more detail about each. We can have our own podcast about lease options, about contract for deed. They're very similar in a lot of ways, but there are some differences. And so maybe we can, I think we can get someone that's done a lot more of these than I have. And so they can go into more details. And I think that'd be great podcast to go over. But I just want to give you kind of an idea of some definitions of these are all type of seller financing, right? It's buying the property without having to go into the bank. It's basically what it comes down to. Fantastic. So those are a few ways that kind of seller financing works. There are other strategies which we can go into of like seller financing options, but those are kind of like the main staples of seller financing. There's wraparounds, which is a lot more complicated. It's basically doing those things seller financing or subject to, and then selling it subject to, again, on top of it, and they're having money on top of that. So that's entire, but I'm not even attempt to even give an explanation what a wraparound is. Don't Google it because you'll find something else. But make sure. Oh heavens, this is horrible. Okay, but
when are people willing to do the seller finance type situations? When can a buyer or an investor go in and actually talk to a seller, and what situation would they need to be in for that?
So almost every situation, with a few exceptions, you can do some sort of seller financing. It's just convincing the other party to do so. But there are particular situations where people are more likely to say yes to a seller financing situation. Does that make sense? So most scenarios are pretty fair game as far as seller financing, with a few exceptions. But there are some scenarios people are going to be like, okay, this makes more sense for my particular situation, where I'm at, what's going on, if that makes sense, right? One of my favorites is to get seller financing is the tired landlords. So with this, I'm going to go over kind of what to say, because in the situations I talk about different things. So I'm going to combine these two segments as far as the situations and what to say, because I say things differently depending on each situation. If that made any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. First of all, guys, if you're in the comments, if you're listening to this, watching this, make sure to put in the comments what type of strategies have you guys done, and what kind of strategies do you want to learn more about? We do a future podcast on. We really want to hear you guys, so make sure you communicate with us. Let us know what you want and we can give you more of, I promise. Okay, so different scenarios. One of my favorite scenarios is finding tired landlords. A great way to find these type of people is looking for evictions. You can go into your county's website, pull the evictions or the case files, whatever it is. You can do your own research, figure it out, but you can pull the information and find out who's getting evicted and actually talk to the people that are evicting. So the tired landlords, when they just evicted someone, they're at a crossroads. I target landlords that have the property in their own name and not an LLC. Why would I do that, Jana? What do you think?
Because they do not know as much about business, it sounds like.
Right.
They're just a standard person. Just maybe that's the only rental that they have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they're more of a mom and pop shop, Mm-hmm. So I rather, if I'm trying to help someone, maybe someone doesn't know as much about how to run a rental business. A lot of these people, like, they moved, they couldn't sell their house, and so they just kept it. Or a lot of them, like a lot of vacant, I do a lot of driving for dollars people. And I swear to you, a good 30% of all these vacant homes are owned by doctors, lawyers, dentists, because they make a lot of money and they know real estate they don't know what to do with it. They just don't know what to do. So they buy a property.
They think it's a great deal.
They buy a property. They may even get a renter in there. Then when they leave, it's like, oh, they destroyed it. They don't know. It's just like they're pulling their hair out. And so, like, they're not hurting on money. So they just leave it. Whether they're paying mortgage payments, whatever, I'll get to it later. And so I'm not exaggerating it. Over a third of all my driving for dollar properties are owned by, because that's why I can find most of their information. I just Google the owner's name. If I can't find their phone number, there's a doctor's office. That's how I find them. I call the doctor's office. I need to talk to Dr. Bruce. Like, okay, I'm talking about your property, Dr. Bruce. I'm kidding. I'm not even joking. Like, that's so some of the evictions. If you guys have ever gone through eviction, whether it's one side or the other, hopefully it's from the landlord standpoint. But it's a pain in the butt. It's just, especially if you're managing yourself, you're going to court. You can actually even find out when your local courts because they usually have kind of scheduled dates every second Tuesday or every other Tuesday, they'll do an eviction. Go to your courthouse, find out when that happens. And a lot of times you can actually go and sit and you can see who the landlord is and then talk to him afterwards. because why not? Anyways, that's just the tip. All right. So tired landlords, I could tangents forever. Tired landlords, evictions, they have a choice. They just got this guy out of the house, or this family or whoever. They weren't paying rent. They destroyed it. They got him out of the house. They probably destroyed it because that's typical. They have a choice to either put more money into it and fix it up and get another renter in there, or they can try to sell it. If they want to sell it, they still got to fix it up and then try to get a realtor. And you know how much I love realtors. I know I'm a realtor. I know Jana, but for the most part, it's just a big pain in the butt. So what I like to do is I talk to them, and I'll say, and I'll just have a conversation with them. Hey, I was calling at this property. Like, oh yeah, we just had, I just evicted someone. Oh really? Yeah. I'm actually interested to buy it. How did that go? And try to find out some of the details about the evictions. Why would we want to do that? Why would I want to tell them about the details of the evictions? Any thoughts? Why would I want to know about the details? Why would I want to know how much it sucked? When I'm talking
you want to
to
know
them?
how tired they are.
Exactly.
You want to know how tired they are. What their motivation are. They really looking to offload it because they're just thinking, oh, they left such a big mess. I don't want to deal with it. It's like, oh, okay. He just doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's where you jump in and save the day.
It's a pain point. When I'm telling something horrible happened to me, I kind of emotionally, I relive it when I tell about it. So I get worked up a little bit. Oh yeah, these pieces of garbage, man. I worked so hard on this thing and they just destroyed it. They did this to me, this to me, this to me. Like, oh man, that sucks. And that would be, I just start hitting those pain points of why it sucks. Like, yeah, that does suck. Oh my gosh, they did that. They destroyed your coffee table. Oh man, your grandpa made that. That's unreplaceable. You can never get that back. And like, oh, so how much, you obviously bought this to get cash flow. How much were you, if you don't mind me asking, how much were you, and I'm going to say a lot of questions, guys, which I highly recommend you write down. And I'm actually going to, if you look in the comments below, I'm going to give questions and phrases for each of the subjects. I'm going to tell you out here, and also it's going to be in the show notes of what to say and how to word certain things. Okay. And then I asked him, like, so you bought this property for a reason. Why did you have a renter in there? Oh, well, I wanted cash flow, right? Is 80% of the time. Other times it was like, oh yeah, well, I just moved, or I couldn't sell it, or couldn't do whatever. And then you just find the pain point in that, right? So they're looking for cash flow, right? Oh yeah. So how much cash flow were you getting? Oh man, I was only making $200 a month. Oh really? Well, how much was that? The mortgage you're paying on the property? And they'll say, $1,000. Oh, wow. So until you get a renter in there, if it's going to take you, and then you ask them, how long do you think it's going to take them to fix it up? How much is it going to cost them? And you can even say, like, I do flips, and fixing that property probably cost me $30,000, $40,000, or let them give their own estimate, right? So they're going to say, oh yeah, it's going to cost me 10, because how long is it going to take you? Probably 3 months. Wow. So you're spending $10,000, and if you're paying $1,000 a month in mortgage payments, so you're losing like $13,000. And that's very low, if anything. Usually it's a lot higher, but just as an example, just throw numbers out so you guys get it. You're losing $13,000 on this property until you get someone in there. And like, how long do you think it takes you to get someone in there? Like, well, once I fix it, maybe a month or two. So 5 months. So that's $15,000 you're losing. Oh man, that's rough. I feel for you, man. I've had properties too, and try to relate with them if you can. If it's your first deal or anything, don't worry about it. You still emotionally connect, because everyone can tell what something sucks if it sucks. So that I feel for you. I have a question for you. So instead of you putting in another $15,000 and losing another 5 more in the mortgage, how would you be open to a conversation where you can get your $200 in cash flow and not have to worry about the property at all? You ask that question, like, well, what do you mean? Well, yeah, I can get you your $200 cash flow, and your mortgage can be paid, and you're never at the word property forever. It's like, well, how do you do this? One thing in any of the scenarios, Jana's heard me say this many times. Never say the words seller and financing together. No, don't. Stop it if you're doing that. If people are telling you no.
That's what the podcast is about, but don't say it.
Don't say those words together. Know what they are, but don't say it together, because seller financing, because of it has a bad stigma to it, because people don't understand it. There's a lot of fear And if you do it wrong, you can get screwed, right? If you're not protecting yourself in certain things, if I sell my house with seller financing and I don't protect myself, I can get screwed royally. So everyone has their Uncle Pete or whatever, and they heard stories, seller financing, and maybe their realtors are telling them, oh, that's a horrible idea, which most realtors will tell you it's a horrible idea because they don't know it. But that's the next subject. So never say the word seller financing together.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you get a bad investor too, or a newbie investor
Correct.
that doesn't know what they're doing,
right,
and they create a bad experience, and then that bad experience just gets spread out, and that's how seller finance ended up being such a bad, whatever that word is I'm looking for.
Has a
bad word.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it has a bad rep. It has a bad rep,
Yeah.
So I never say, because here you have to realize anything you're telling your seller, they're going to go tell their family, their friends, whatever. And so they hear that word seller financing. Oh yeah, I'm going to seller finance my house. Like, why would you ever want to do that? So go into it knowing that that's going to happen. So even if you say the word seller financing and they're 100% on board, realize that they will. And if they bring up that's fine. If they want to say the word seller financing, but let them make sure it's them to say, not you. This is my personal experience. Anyways, I've had too many shot down because I use the wrong wording. I think the wordsmithing in deal negotiation is crucial. Then you say, okay, what I can do, I can get you your cash flow, and you're not going to worry about anything. And then you go into pain points. You're not going to worry about having to evict someone. You're not going to worry about spending the extra $1,000 because you've already talked about this, right? You're not going to worry about this XYZ, anything that they said in the past. You recap it all, right? And also what you want to find out though, during the discover stage, because you want to discover as much information as you can before you go through your pitch, before you tell them. You want to discover as much information. So you want to discover their pain points, and you want to discover what they're going to do if they did sell it, because we know there's the two options, right? Renovate or resell. If they did sell it, what would they do with that money? Because they're going to have equity in the property normally. So what are they going to do with the property? Are they going to put it in a different property? Are they going to do whatever X, Y, and Z, right? As of right now, they're not doing anything with the property with that money. So a lot of times they'll probably just say they'll leave it in the bank, or they'll find another property to buy, but probably not, because they're tired landlords. They don't want to do that stuff anymore. They'll put it in the stock market, whatever it is, right? So you find out what they're doing, because this is like, oh, if I do sell it, then I need to make sure I pay off XYZ loan, which is $30,000. Okay, cool. So now you know what they would do with that money. So assuming they own the property outright, or no. Well, I did talk about mortgage too, didn't I? And both scenarios. We'll talk about both scenarios. If they have, $40,000, $50,000 in equity, right? You say, you know what? How about this? I want to buy your property, and I can actually, because you're going to do your math before you even talk to this guy, right? I want to buy your property, and I'm going to do it through payments. So you can continue to get interest and cash flow on this property. You're paying $1,000 in mortgage every month, and you're only getting $200 in cash flow. I'm going to pay you $1,200 a month. Now, before you do this, make sure you're checking with if that makes sense for you, because even a seller financing deal, if the numbers don't make sense, it's not a good deal. So if the rents,
have to check?
Yeah, if the rents is $1,100, if you're paying him $1,200, maybe it's not a good idea if you're planning to keep it as a rental. Now, maybe for a flip, sweet, solid, fantastic, right? So whatever makes sense, make sure the numbers work. So when I throw numbers out, don't just blindly throw numbers out. Make sure it makes sense for the strategy you want to complete. So you're like, here's what I want to do. I want to purchase your property. So we're gonna have enough to pay the mortgage, and then you're gonna get $200. Once they get interested in that, like, oh, are you open to have a conversation about that? Great, awesome. So I can give you $1,200 a month, which is $1,000 going to the bank, $200 going to you. You're still getting your cash flow. I'm going to take care of everything else. How long do you want these payments for? Is it what? Well, how long do you want me to pay you $200 a month? Forever? Okay. How about we say 30 years? 40 years? Sure. You're 30? How about we do 50 years? Whatever, right? I mean, 30, 40, that's kind of pushing it, but you can do that. How long do you want to receive these payments? I don't know. Well, I need to do this 5 years. Okay, cool. 5 years. We can do this agreement for 5 years. So I can make this payments. I'm going to purchase the property that still makes sense. and I'm going to make payments, and you're going to charge me interest. And what I highly recommend is get an amortization calculator on your phone. Get amortization calculator on your phone, and you can actually show them by interest how much money they're going to make if you pay for it. Or if they don't even say the words interest, or they're not even interested, you can just say just 100% principal, which is even better. But I always usually bring up interest. I mean, again, I'll probably leave money on the table, but it just adds more value, because during the discovery, you're going to find out how much they would have sold it for if they're going to sell it. So, and this is a good strategy. So because of the interest that people are paying, right? If I'm buying a house for $200,000, by the time 30 years happens on a 4% interest, I'm paying $400,000 when you add it all up. So that's another thing. And you're just going to hit everything that's great about the deal. You're just going to hit on their pain, and then hit why this is awesome. Why they be an idiot. You want to put yourself in a situation like, how can I make him feel that he's an idiot if he doesn't do this deal? You don't want to make anyone feel like an idiot, but you get my point, right? That this is the best option for him, right? You're looking at him. So now these pains are going to be gone. Everything you wanted it's going to be here, because you're charging me 4% interest on this. I am actually going to be paying you $400,000 for your $200,000 house if it was like 30 years, and you just lay it on. Benefit. And these are the same benefits I'm saying. So you don't have to do extra. This is what it is. This is the benefits. This is good benefits. So discovering, you find out what they need, what the problem is, and you just lay on the benefits, and you hit how this is going to get rid of their pain. Get rid of the pain. And this is the benefits you're getting. Mortgage is going to be taken care of. And so they're going to say, well, wait a minute, I still have a mortgage on the property. So let's go back. Let's say they have a mortgage, right? Like, well, I mean, I want $200, but my mortgage is still tied on the property. I want to make sure that my mortgage gets paid, because I can't trust you. You're some bald guy. What if you go to China in next month and after the whole thing's done? Like, okay, well, what we're going to do, sir, and that's a very good question. So what we're going to do, sir, we are going to get an escrow company, like we were saying before with Jana, right, guys? We're going to get an escrow company, and I'm not actually going to pay you $1,200. I'm going to pay the escrow company $1,200, because the escrow company, we're paying them, and I'm going to make that payment, right? So we're going to pay them, but they are legally obliged to look at both parties. They have to follow the contracts. Otherwise, they have legal obligations they have to follow. So they're going to look at best interest for the buyer, best interest for the seller. And so if I don't make payments, if I'm later than 30 days on these payments, because I'm going to pay the bank the escrow company $1,200, the escrow company will pay the mortgage, the $1,000, and then pay Sam, the seller, the $200 he gets every month, right? And then they say, well, what if you go to China? Now I'm stuck with the same problem again. Okay, cool. Well, then we'll do this is a document and word that Jana used earlier. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. Do you want to explain what that is? You want me to explain what that is? I've been talking a lot. I don't know if you want to get a crack in there.
Deed in lieu of foreclosure is, so let's say you purchase the property, seller finance situation, and you fail to make the payments. So you haven't made the payments, and rather than the seller now having to go to court or try and involve, legal attorneys or anything like that, all it says is the title will go back to the seller, depending on what you guys have agreed upon. So if it's 30 days late, 60 days, 90 days, whatever the agreement is, there's a form that gets filled out that says once that is met, the deed goes back into the name of the seller, so they don't have to deal with foreclosure proceedings.
Exactly. So a foreclosure proceedings can take a long time. A foreclosure can take months of, because there's certain laws that have to be filled. They have to file certain documents. There's all sorts of things that have to happen, right? That kind of is like, all right, guy. So right now, I am my hands are tied. I'm in this agreement. We have a deed in foreclosure. If I don't follow up on my end, because I'm going to put money in this property, whether I'm going to rent it or flip it, I'm going to put $20,000, $40,000 into this property, apart from anything I give them as a down payment, right? So and you tell them this, like, just so you know, I'm going to be putting $40,000 in this property. There's no way in heck I'm ever going to not make these payments. And then what I highly recommend is when someone has an objection like that, you say a statement, and then you bounce off the statement. You just continue going. If you give that their objection credence by like, what do you think about that? If you just bounce off it, like if their concern is like, if I stop making payments and just move on to China, what I like to do is just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be putting over $40,000 into this property. And if I don't make payments, you literally take over the property and all my money is gone and now you have it. So that's why I'm not afraid of that even happening. So this is some other benefits we're going to get. And I just kind of move on with the pitch or whatever we're talking about, right? So you just bounce off and if they continue to ask, then you can go into more detail if you want. But typically, if you treat it like it's not a big deal, it's not a big, because it really isn't. I mean, because what we're saying is 100% true. We'll never be misleading with the seller by any means, in any shape or form. It's just bad business.
You're going to give them a down payment, maybe, depending on the contract. And then you're going to dump money into it, depending on the condition of the house. And then you're going to be making those payments monthly. And then if for some reason, the mafia comes looking for you and you have to bail to China, then they get to keep all the money, depending on how you structure it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good perk that you could do, is just you take over the house and I'm in China,
right?
Avoiding the mob.
and the cool thing is like they take over the house, but so let's say the down payment was $20,000. I put in $40,000. They just got $60,000 and the house back. So then they can sell it at the original price they were thinking about selling or put a renter in there. So I tell them like, it's like, so a worst case scenario, you make more money. So, and I tell them, like, you want me to foreclose on this. You want me to default. You want me to go to China. As soon as we sign these documents and I give the down payment, your hope and prayer should be that I default on this. So when like the worst case scenario is they make more money, it doesn't seem so bad. Right?
Right.
And you go into taxes. So this is another, and so a lot of the stuff I'm saying, guys, can kind of go into broad strokes into a lot of different scenarios of why someone can do seller financing. I just kind of went into more detail in the landlord situation because they want cash flow. Another benefit, and you're just going to lay this stuff on, and you want to lay on the benefits when they bring an objection. Every time they tell you no, that's when you throw another. Okay, so let's just say I win everything. I win at the pain points. I went into the objections, right? Or went into all the cool things about it. Like, oh, I don't know. My wife's not really I don't know if she's going to like this. Hopefully both decision makers are there, right? Or one, however many's there. I don't know. I'm still kind of nervous about it. Then you give them more benefits to it. Like, okay, well, I mean, if you sell the property without doing creative financing, I use the words creative financing. I never say seller financing. Again, so that in replace. If you don't sell it this way, you're going to be stuck with capital gains taxes. And the cool thing about this, if you sell it the way that we're talking about, you're going to pay less in capital gains. Like, well, what do you mean? Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me tell you. You didn't know about this? Oh yeah, man. I'm sorry. I thought you would have known this already. You're a savvy investor. You don't come up snobbish, like sincerely, if you say stuff like that, right? Because you can say that the wrong way. Like, I thought you knew this. Weird.
I thought you knew this. What do you mean?
Oh, geez, I thought, like dummy, like me, I'm the stupid guy. Oh, I'm sorry. I probably should explain this. I should explain this to you earlier. I'm the dumb one. That's how you want to kind of present it. When they sell their property, right? Their equity was $100,000 as an example, or $200,000. They got to pay the capital gains of that $200,000 that year. So that puts them in the highest tax bracket there is. So they're going to be paying higher taxes because they made more money. If you do it with creative financing, you're only paying taxes on the money you receive. So because I'm making $1,200 payments, and you can show that there's a mortgage, because you can throw in that, like if there's a mortgage already, you can still get the tax benefits from paying the mortgage too. Like, you know what, I'm going to pay you this $1,200. You're only going to be showing that you sold this property for this year. You're only paying taxes on that $12,000 as an example for that you paid that year, which puts you in a lower tax bracket, and you're only paying taxes for $12,000 for that year, and you're in a lower tax bracket. So over the course of the entire loan, they're going to pay a dramatic less amount of taxes. I always tell them, like, make sure you check with your tax guy, because this is just strategies I've seen. You never want to come off as you are a tax professional by any means or anything like that at all. I always like to have a disclaimer, like, I know you're in check with your tax guy. Make sure everything I'm saying is true or not. So things like that. It's like, oh, I already know you're going to do due diligence. I already know this is going to be, you're going to verify it. Give them more credit than they may or may not deserve. All right. So the tax benefit, that's a good benefit to add on until they finally, and always assume to sell, guys. I know I'm talking a lot about negotiations in this podcast so well, but that's what it is. That's the only way you're going to get. You have to be decent in negotiations to get seller financing deals, pure and simple. You have to know how to say things. You have to wordsmith it correctly. And that's how you're going to be able to get the seller financing deals. Pretty clean way to get into the seller financing deal from that aspect, right? Now, let's just say maybe it's not a landlord. Maybe it's someone that's their actual home. So another way to get subject to or seller financing like deals is notice of defaults and foreclosures. So you can get foreclosures in mass amount of ways. One way is to go to, if you're in Utah, silverbackleads.com, my own company, shameful self-plug. Or honestly, if you go to title companies and you go to the title companies have access to what's called notice of default. So when someone is behind on their payments, the banks have to file a notice of default, and anyone can actually look this up if they know where to go. Title companies have access to this, and you can just go to them like, you know what? You want to find an investor-friendly title company. They're usually more open for things like this. And you can ask them like, you know, I'm looking for a list for notice of default. If you give me the list, any deals that I find, I'm going to come to your title company. Whenever you ask anyone for anything, make sure you put a benefit for them. If you're just asking, gimme, I mean, sure, people just from good nature and being kind, they'll give you to a certain point. But when you show it, it's the same. Like seller financing is great for me, but really it's fantastic for the seller. So if you always in that mindset, always, right? You can get your commissions and all that stuff. I just need a list, and they can send you a list and you can actually start talking. You can reach out to these people, whether it's mail, finding leads. I think that's another podcast I want to do.
But I mean, like the foreclosures.com or findyourforeclosurehome.com, those types of things.
I don't like them.
Exactly.
They're months old typically. I mean, so I go to foreclosure.com, whatever. It's going to be, I'm going to get a list of people that were filing for foreclosure or that was filed upon 6 months ago, 3 months ago. By the time I get the list and paid for it, anyone that I call or talk to, they've either already talked to 1,000 investors. You're the 1,001 investor that talked to them. They fixed the problems themselves. They got caught up, whatever. They've already been foreclosed on, or they sold the property, or whatever it was, right? So the issue that they were facing has already been resolved, like 98% of the time.
What about the foreclosures that show up on Zillow?
No, Zillow's don't use it. Why? First of all, if you're all on Zillow, get off Zillow. What are you doing? Get off. What are you doing? If you're ever on Zillow, just get off it. Just stop it. Ridiculous.
I get people that, especially newer investors that don't know, that go to these websites.
It's so bad.
It's like, if people realized if those were legit, there wouldn't be anything on there because all the investors would be buying up all those foreclosures if it was that easy.
Right. This is the prices the Zillow have, and there's estimates are just.
Here in Utah, we should clarify here in Utah, because Utah is a non-disclosure state when it comes to real estate or any of those other parties. But there are states that do share that information, so those are a little more accurate.
Okay. Well, my personal experience with Zillow has been absolutely just terrific. So I would not, well, mostly because people see Zillow and the prices are so off that they'll say like their $100,000 house is worth $250,000. Like, I've seen that far off. I'm not even joking. And so when I come to an offer, like, okay, I can give you $80,000 for it because of the repairs or whatever. I'm like, well, Zillow says it's $250,000. Is Zillow making you an offer? Because Zillow ain't here. I don't say it like that, but that's how I feel.
You should.
I feel like sometimes it's like, Zillow's not here. I'm the one making an offer. This estimates. Anyways, okay, that's a side tangent.
Anyway, moving on. So seller finance, where were we? Oh, okay. So finding foreclosures and
So people that are and this is for anything. This is people that are for any deal. You find someone that has urgency to sell, right? That's the best way to go. Jana, she's the seller for this whole podcast. So Jana, she's going through foreclosure. She's not made some good personal life, or just had some tough situations. Lost a job, especially nowadays after the Corona thing. She's lost her job. She can't make any payments. She's going through foreclosure. Crap. Okay, got it. I can come up and talk to her like, hey, you know what, Jan, I understand you're going through some hard time. I'd like to buy your property from you. And so that's what she wants to do. She wants to sell her property because she still has the $20,000 in equity, as an example, right? She has $20,000 in equity. She owes $80,000. The property is worth $100,000. We're using small but easy to do math numbers. So I'll tell her like, oh, fantastic. I can buy your property from you. This is fantastic. There's a couple different ways where I can give you $80,000 to buy the property. And so I usually start with a low ball. So I do something that's called anchoring. Anchoring is when you give someone, and this is on the buyer. And so if someone's buying, you usually start with a higher price and go down. When you get someone with a lower price, or when you're trying to buy something, you offer them a lower price. And so now that's the point of reference. So I'm offering $80,000 in cash. Like in cash, it makes perfect sense for me to offer $80,000. Like I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone, like legitimate, because I still am going to have to pay for hard money cost. I'm going to have to pay for everything. So when I present my offer to people, I give them everything. Lift up my hood of my business. And like, you know what? This property needs a little repairs, which you can tell, and I try to have them tell me what needs to be repaired. What would you do if you were going to fix this up? Oh, you would redo the kitchen? So would I. See, we're on the same page. You redo the bathrooms? Yeah. What about the roof? Do you think the roof would need any work? Me too. I think so too. And so they're saying the list, right? And so I tell them how much it's going to cost to do these repairs. It's going to cost me $1,500.40 to fix this roof. It's going to cost me, that's very low for roofs, but whatever.
Oh my God.
I was going to say carpet, but then I said roofs, and I was like, okay, that's not realistic. But whatever the prices are, right? Because you shouldn't just throw numbers out there. That's stupid. But you figure out what's going to cost you, and I tell them. I'm not saying you have to do this. This is what I do. I tell them everything. I go into money cost, I go into closing cost, and I tell them how much I'm going to make. I'm risking $200,000 here. I want to at least be able to make $25,000. It makes it, and if I have an oops can be $10,000 oops. So I need to have a buffer to make sure if either oops happens, and I will tell them a few of my oopses, which I have plenty of. So I have lots of fodder. So I can give an example, like, my floors got damaged. I had to replace them. And that was a $4,000 oops, and so on and so forth. And I even tell them, like, you know what, even if we never did business, that's fine. This is some numbers, and you can actually kind of talk to your own contractors. And if you want to fix it, you have a better idea how much it's actually going to cost you if you want to do something like this, in case you need an extra loan or whatever it is. So you go about this as being as helpful as possible. Like you want to give them value. That's how you get value. So I can buy this property for $80,000 because that's what's going to take. And they're like, oh man, I'm not going to, if I have to, that's fine, but I'm not going to be able to really make any, I want to walk away. I have these problems because you're going to have discovery. You're going to discover what they need. Like, okay, if you're able to sell your property, what do you do with the money that you get? That's a big discovery question. If you're going to sell this property, what are you going to do with the money? Huge. Pay off a car, pay off more debts. If they're in foreclosure, they're already in debt. Pay off debts 90% of the time. I'm put in the bank. Usually that's not usually the case. They're going through foreclosure. So they're paying off debts. Like, okay, cool. They're like, okay, you know what I can do? Because I told you it's going to cost me like $15,000 just to hold on to the property for 6 months because I'm paying for money, fees, and other things like that. I have a way. Would you be open to a conversation? I always like to start out with this because it's not like a commitment. They can say yes to something without actually saying yes. Would you be open to a conversation where I can actually offer you a little bit more? Like, well, yeah. Oh, good, great. So they gave me the little yes. Awesome. Well, what I can do, I can actually buy your property for $100,000. We have to be a little creative. And do you want to hear about that? I keep asking permission to continue, right? Because sometimes people do not want to be sold. But they love to buy. And they're not necessarily buying, they're selling, but you get my point, right? They don't want to be sold on an idea, but they want to buy an idea, especially if it gets them money. So I just kind of creep into it. So what's going to happen is I'm actually going to be able to, at closing, I'm going to pay you $20,000. And what we're going to do, so I can actually release some of my costs, we're going to leave this mortgage in place. So the property goes in my name, and and I'm going to make payments on your behalf on this mortgage. Then they're going to have lots of questions afterwards, and you kind of go into more details, right? Okay, yeah, so what it is, I'm going to actually pay an escrow company, a third-party company. And if you see it, a lot of the stuff overlaps, right? Because you're going to explain the benefits. Just like from the landlord, it's the exact same thing. When you go to the pitch stage, you're going to explain to them exactly what pain you are relieving and what benefits they're getting, right? What pain you are relieving, what benefits they're getting. Very important. Go in detail. Totally fine. I plan to be in someone's front room talking to them for a minimum an hour to. I've been in someone's front room or in their kitchen actually for over 4 hours once. We didn't get the deal, by the way. Anyway, still, but it was pretty close. It was pretty close. I think I could have. I don't know. There's not much I could have done in this.
4 hours, and I could have had it.
I know. Another 4 months. Give me even 8. I would have got it. Never overstay your welcome. Explain to them how this works, and then they're going to have the concerns. Like, wait a minute. Well, what about my credit? Like, and so a lot of lenders, because you're finding out what they plan to do, right? In the discovery stage, you find out beforehand. Do they plan to live in an apartment? Do they plan to go buy a house? Right? So this is really easy if they plan to go live in an apartment, because right now, if they're in foreclosure, they're not going to be able to buy a house. They don't have any money for down. Even if you pay them money, they're not really going to have much money. They're not much money. They're probably going to be renting. Like 90% of the time, that's what's going to be. So it's like, okay, well, if we do it this way, you're going to get $20,000 now as opposed to nothing, or as opposed to 5 or whatever the other offer was, whatever your anchor was, your lower ball was. And you're going to get $20,000. And you're able to, you can go to your apartment. You're going to have money for your moving expenses, for your first and last month's rent, for your deposit, all that stuff. And you can pay off X debt, Y debt, because they've already told you, because you already asked them. So all of your problems, for the limited problems they were able to share with you, can be resolved if we buy your property with a little creativity. Now, sometimes, even with the numbers, it doesn't make sense to give them that $20,000, right? Sometimes it's just too tight. Maybe they only bought the property 2 years ago and they just don't have enough equity, right? To give them any cash. So sometimes even, like the only way I can buy this property if we leave the mortgage in place. Sometimes I don't even in that scenario, there's no anchor. This is like, if otherwise, or you could do an anchor, like they owe 80, but I can buy it for 60. Usually it's 160, but fill in the numbers, it makes sense. But what I can actually buy it for at least what you owe, so you're not so your credit's not destroyed. Because I know people that once they had a foreclosure, stays on the record for 7 years, as opposed to a late payment is like 2 or 3 years, I think. Never give them specific information to say, I know people that are like this, and because you're not a credit person, don't put yourself in trouble. It's like, I know people that I would imagine that check with your own credit professional. That's why, and I tell them that too. I know you're going to check with your own credit professional, find out for sure. You're bringing the benefits, right? So if we do this, you're not going to walk away with anything, but you knew that already. You already knew that you're not going to walk with anything when you leave this property. At the very least, your credit's not going to be as damaged. And maybe I can scrounge up $2,000 to help you with moving expenses. Or I'll even ask him to discover, how much do you think you would need to actually move and get into your next apartment? $4,000? Really? Okay. So how much would you need for a moving truck? This much? Okay. And you even do math. How much do you need for your first, because maybe they've already looked at places to move. So you can actually drill down how much exactly they need. And then just you're not trying to pay them the least. Well, we are trying to pay them the least amount, but you want to be fair to the person as well. So then you're okay, so I'm giving you're finding the problems. That's why discovery is huge. People just throw out numbers. Oh yeah, if we do seller financing, I'll pay you more. Discovery. You ask questions until they're tired of answering them. And then you ask more. Okay. You want to find out everything. Yes, absolutely.
It's just a matter of getting information.
Exactly
and
right.
The more information you have, the better and more creative you can get with your solution.
All right, guys. I know I went in a bunch of tangents. I understand that it's a lot of information, and I want to give you more detailed information as far as discovery questions, how to wordsmith, and what we're going to do, because we're still trying to get our names out there, and we are going through. We've done the research and work of getting seller financing and getting these deals and learn how to do this so we can share this with you guys. We want you guys to do us a little favor in return if you can. Because now you have some tools to move on, I want to give you some tools as well. So if you guys can share this podcast, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, if you share this podcast, whether it's YouTube or the podcast version, and you screenshot it and you email.
There's a contact us that you can reach out with your screenshot of you sharing, whether it's YouTube or, like Jared said, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you're listening or watching the podcast. What are we doing?
I will give you all that information. So before, I know I said I was going to put into the show notes. but I'm not going to do that. It's just going to be, we want to give you this value. We just need asking for a small favor in return, and you can have all this value. So if you do that, if you show us like, hey, I shared it, here's a screenshot, awesome. We're going to return the email to you with the documents, which is going to have a bunch of discovery questions. And these are just guides, guys, just so you know, right? So you can add, take away. You don't have to ask. You don't want to have this piece of paper in front of you and just, okay, so how long have you been in this house?
Fill in the blank.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're talking on the phone, you absolutely could do something like that, right? That'd be cool. So we'll have like discovery questions. Then it'll be questions on how to get them into seller financing, how to resolve situations, how to just bounce off of their objections, trying to resolve objections. That's where we put it. So I'll have a lot of information. It'll be a couple page document for sure. I just got to write it. I'm not worried. So those are some, and I'll have even more stuff. So even more than what you're hearing today, because I wanted to talk a lot more, but our time kind of ran out, unfortunately. We can do maybe a seller financing podcast part dos. Maybe we'll do that too, where I can just continue to talk. But yeah, so share it, guys. We really appreciate it. I mean, we hope we're giving you guys some value, sharing the little bit that we do know. We really want to make sure that people that don't know how to start can actually get going and not knowing being their obstacle of getting to their dream life. So if you guys are watching this on Facebook, like and share, subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on podcasts, any form of podcast, make sure you like and give us a review.
Subscribe too.
And what?
Subscribe too.
Subscribe too, because you can subscribe on, yes, 100%. All right, guys, we love you.
Thank you, guys. All right.
We hope you liked that podcast. Stay tuned for next Monday for a brand new podcast and a brand new guest. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.